We are also starting to see developers interested in the area, starting to mobilise sites. But in terms of scale, in terms of numbers, we are looking at around 3,000 homes, and that will include family homes, wheelchair homes, affordable homes, and we are also looking to really seek massive uplifts in the amount of industrial floor space. And people do come to you quite angry because they're concerned about impact on parking or daylight and sunlight levels. And actually we can use that to our advantage, because quite often sometimes people misunderstand what we're doing. And we can also use these opportunities to talk to local residents about the benefits that could be brought as a result of this regeneration. People shouldn't be so stuck behind their desktop. Get out, talk to people, do site visits, and see, all these massive buildings that were once on a piece of paper or on a plan kind of being brought to life. And I think that is just one of the most brilliant things about this job.
Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the local government challenge sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anvil. And we're visiting a different council every month to find out what works and what needs to change to get more homes built. And this month, we've come to the London Borough of Brent. Hello, tell us who you are and where we are.
Thanks, Toby. It's great to be here. I'm Kiran Chauhan. I'm Regeneration Manager here at Brent Council. We are sat right outside TGI Fridays, which is very close to the London Designer Outlet, which is just a little bit further along. And in front is, the Wembley Stadium and Wembley Regeneration.
The heart of English football, the heart of English culture to a large extent. Tell us a bit about your role at Brent Council and what kind of involvement with all of this you've had.
So I arrived at Brent 3 years ago, and my main role at Brent was to lead on the preparation of a master plan for Staples Corner. So Staples Corner is one of the newest growth areas in Brent. It was designated as a growth area in Brent's local plan. And we have recently adopted a master plan framework and design code for how Staples Corner can be transformed into a new mixed-use community. We have proposed around 3,000 homes could be delivered there. We want to see industrial uplift. We want to see supporting infrastructure and services. And it's been, a really great process, actually. It's been a collaboration. We have done loads of engagement through that process. We've talked to our stakeholders, and we've secured significant buy-in from them as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to dig into the details of what that role involves. But I just want to be clear. So this is the next Wembley that we're talking about in a way. So there's 15,000 homes being delivered here in this place, but this is one of 8 growth zones across the borough, and Staples Corner is one of the other 8. What's the scale of development happening there?
Well, we are starting to see some development happen already. So we've seen some planning permissions being granted for significant schemes already. We are also starting to see developers interested in the area, starting to mobilise sites. But in terms of scale, in terms of numbers, we are looking at around 3,000 homes, and that will include family homes, wheelchair homes, affordable homes. And we are also looking to really seek massive uplifts in the amount of industrial floor space. So Staples Corner is an existing industrial estate. It's low density, a lot of it's single story, and we think it has massive potential for transformational change.
3,000 homes that's a significant change and a significant bonus for people looking for a house. What's your role in making that happen?
Well, the first huge milestone has been to actually get the master plan and design code SPD for Staples Corner adopted. That's been roughly a 2.5-year process.
SPD?
Supplementary planning document, and that basically sets out how we want this development to take place. So it's basically a framework. It's setting out zones where we want homes to go, where we want the industrial to go, where we want the supporting services to go. And we would expect development to come forward broadly in line with this master plan framework. And the benefit of that is it gives landowners, developers confidence that they will get planning permission for their site.
So if what they're building complies with that document, then planning permission will be granted.
Exactly that. So it really just helped take the risk out for developers and landowners.
And for an outsider, for someone without any experience in planning or development, someone like me, how would you describe what you actually did to make that document happen?
Well, my role was project managing the whole process. So leading on the early engagement, stakeholder engagement. First of all, telling people that we were going to do this, because I think just getting that message out is, quite important. We're not just going to do it, but we're going to tell people we're going to do it first. It's also a procurement exercise in terms of getting our technical expertise on board, getting our architects on board to help deliver this. We also had transport consultants that were involved in developing this master plan. We had viability experts involved in drawing up this master plan because we want it to be deliverable. So my role was basically coordinating all of this and aligning it to Brent's local plan, because we want what we show in this master plan framework document to broadly be in line with Brent's local plan. We did a lot of statutory consultation as the master plan was being publicised and promoted, and we also secured changes and amendments in line with what people thought was lacking or missing from the document. So my role was, really kind of project managing that and really trying to drive this document forward and taking it through our governance milestones to get it adopted, which it was by our cabinet in November last year.
Well, I imagine you have to be quite determined to get something like that achieved. What do you think are the kind of key skills, the abilities that you have that you bring to that role, or that someone would need to bring to that role?
I think having strong project management is essential because, we are working to a budget, we are working to timescales, we have to do regular check-ins. We also have a whole governance process, so we have to make sure that we are reporting, to make sure that we're on track, that we're not overspending. But also I think having a good, solid knowledge of planning, town planning, is quite key, because the master plan document is a planning document. So I think having quite strong fundamental skills in planning was crucial, really, to try to getting this master plan done and dusted.
Where do you get those skills?
I have got a master's degree in town and country planning from Manchester University. Planning was always something that I wanted to do. I was always fascinated by towns, cities, buildings, spaces. And when I arrived in Manchester, I watched the kind of transformational change of the city centre in the kind of late 90s and early noughties, and I just found that fascinating. But I grew up in Coventry, and I don't know if you know Coventry, but it's got a massive ring road around the city centre. And when I started driving, when I passed my driving test, I could get onto the ring road, no problem, but I could never get off the ring road, and I'd be driving round and round, not knowing how to get off. And again, that was just an example of, potentially highways planning maybe gone a bit wrong. That kind of highway severance that's evident in Coventry is here in Brent. Like, we've got the North Circular Road, we've got the Edgware Road, we've got the gyratory in Neasden, and it's just the challenges that brings, and what we can do in our role as planners and regenerators to work through those barriers, to overcome them, to allow us to, build.
So what part of your role do you enjoy the most?
I would say it's the collaboration.
Okay.
So,
there's a lot of that from what you've described.
There's a lot of collaboration, working with our stakeholders, communicating with them, working with built environment professionals, architects, landscapers. Although that I think just having all those heads around a table, I think just brings out the best.
Because you're kind of finding out what they think and how they see the world.
Exactly, kind of testing ideas and bouncing these around. And there might be new things or new innovation or new ways of tackling something that we have never heard of. And just allowing that kind of collaboration allows all those ideas to come to the table. So I would say that. But, I also really enjoy talking to residents and, talking to the local community. So we've done a lot of that when we were developing the Staples Corner master plan, and having drop-in events where people can come and talk and find out about our plans. I think that has been brilliant. And
but don't you get a lot of confrontation in those moments? Isn't that quite scary sometimes when people are really angry?
Yes, and people do come to you quite angry because they're concerned about impact on parking or daylight and sunlight levels. And actually we can use that to our advantage, because quite often sometimes people misunderstand what we're doing. And, we can also use these opportunities to talk to local residents about the benefits that could be brought as a result of this regeneration. And, after that conversation, they would probably most likely go away a bit happier than how they were when they first approached us. So I think we can use all that to our advantage.
What sort of benefits do people want? What do they respond best to?
Well, in Staples Corner, we found that a lot of the residents that live there just find that they've got nothing to do. There's nowhere to go and buy a sandwich. There isn't really any shops around there. There aren't really very many services around there. There is a real lack of all that type of services and infrastructure. And as part of the master plan, we have sought to build that into it, shops, places for people to go, some new park spaces, open spaces, which is another thing that's been lacking in the area. So all these things which existing residents can benefit from.
So that's all the good stuff. What do you find toughest about your job? What keeps you kind of awake at night worrying about stuff?
In my previous role, when I was working for Camden Council and Southwark Council, again, like planning committee deadlines, they come around so quickly. But also, I would say challenges in retaining staff, that's quite big, just being able to keep hold of staff. That's, there's such a big turnover. And the other thing that I would say is just having to constantly keep abreast of legislation and changing planning rules, and having to be the expert on everything, and the list of topic areas just seems to grow and grow. So there is quite a big challenge just to make sure you're continually reading, you're up to speed, you're going to training, because you can easily miss things.
So it sounds like, Kiran, what you're doing is quite complex. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to worry about. There's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. This is madness. Like, why would you want to do this? What got you into this kind of job?
Well, you might, it probably is a little bit mad actually, but what I find, since I started out in planning and regen 25 years ago, and starting out dealing with people's single story rear extensions, being the case officer for their rear extension, and then progressing through my career and working on some really big sites around Borough and Bankside and Canada Water and Blackfriars Road, and on really huge tall buildings, massive housing developments that are being brought forward by Barratt, by Berkeley Homes, by Grosvenor, all those really big developers. And the thing that I found most satisfied, and the thing that kind of spurred me on to want to do this, is actually seeing these developments completed, occupied, and seeing the benefits that they have brought to not only the people living in them, but the existing residents as well. So I think that has been such a big driver. And I would say that people shouldn't be so stuck behind their desktop. Get out, talk to people, do site visits, and see all these massive buildings that were once on a piece of paper or on a plan kind of being brought to life. And I think that is just one of the most brilliant things about this job.
So given all of that, what would your advice be to someone who's in college or at school who hasn't even thought of a career in kind of the built environment? What would your advice to them be?
I would say if you have that fascination with the built environment, if you have that fascination with towns, with cities and with buildings and spaces, then this really is the career for you. And there's lots of ways that this can take you. I've had a career in public sector for 25 years, but there's lots of different routes that you could take. There's the private sector route. There is a route kind of working for a housing association, working there. So, it can, if you start there, if you have that passion for the built environment, there are so many different avenues where that can take you, and you can just pick what you want. Because I think with the government's drive to build 1.5 million homes, there are going to be hopefully lots of opportunities depending on what exact path you want your career to take.
And what path did you take? How did you start on this career path?
I started with a planning degree in town and country planning from Manchester University, and I started working out in planning policy in Stratford-upon-Avon District Council for a couple of years, working on the local plan. And then I moved to London, and I just started almost 20 years of doing development management and, determining and making recommendations for planning applications. And that's pretty much where I've stayed. That's where I've stayed because that's just what I've enjoyed doing, working in these inner London boroughs on, very constrained sites and seeking to do what I can to optimise density because land is at a premium, so we're getting the best out of these sites, recognising there's not many of them, and that's what I've really enjoyed doing.
What was it like the first time you knocked on someone's door and said, hello, I'm here to talk to you about regeneration? What was that experience like?
Do you know what? I actually really enjoy that because it's your chance to get your side of the story across. And I think that if you get in there early and you kind of talk to them about, benefits that they could get from any kind of redevelopment or regeneration, I think you can get them on side.
So what's your opening line when is it like you knock on someone's door and they open it and you say hi?
When we were developing the Staples Corner master plan, one of the first things that we did was do a business survey. And that involved exactly that. We put our trainers on, we got our clipboards out, we had our surveys, and we just went around talking to businesses. And, I think they found it quite refreshing that we actually did this and we're not kind of doing this from in front of a screen or from our desktop. And, having open-ended questions where they have an opportunity to talk and give their feel of what it's like to be working in that area and how they would like to see it changed, I think was one of the key things that we did, which we then used that information to help develop our master plan. So I think people I quite liked it. I quite enjoyed that process, and I think they enjoyed it too because they could see that the council aren't just hiding behind a desk somewhere. They are making an effort to engage with us, and I was there with a number of members of the team, and I think we all found it quite an enjoyable thing to do, and it wasn't confrontational in the slightest.
Kiran, thank you very much indeed for your contribution to getting 1.5 million new homes built.
Welcome. Thanks, Davey.
And that's it for another episode of 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anvil. And we're going to be back in a few days with more from Brent. But until then, if you could hit like and subscribe, we'd be really grateful, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.